What's up, everybody? Thralls of Metal here. I'm Jammin Jon.
Necrotic Nick.
Shredlord.
And we are bringing you the long-awaited, long-anticipated, thank God we finally got our lives back. We are bringing you the At the Gates ranking. Something that, once again, we have been trying to do for a very long time, but life is kind of shitty. I first got into At the Gates, man, it's got to be like early 2000s, maybe late 90s, I don't know. I bought a copy of Slaughter of the Soul at Allied Record Exchange, a used CD store here that has been in our area for eons of time, responsible for probably, 60% of my music collection now. But anyway, I bought a copy of At the Gates, and at the time I hadn't heard them yet, but I liked the cover, and I was like, well, this looks kind of cool. So I bought it and took it home, and yeah, that's how I started.
Similar story. I think a lot of people probably started with that absolutely amazing album. I got into At the Gates with that album probably around like the mid-2000s as well. It was, around the time that I was really getting into like bands like In Flames and Hypocrisy, but also a lot of like melodic metalcore, like, Killswitch Engage, Darkest Hour, and it all lined up there, and yeah, I've been a fan ever since.
I did not get into them until a little bit later in my metal experience. I was very lucky early on because when I first started playing guitar and getting into music, I was very much into Ozzy Osbourne, the Scorpions, Yngwie Malmsteen, Vinnie Moore, guys that shredded or shredders that were in 80s bands because, starting into guitar, that was like top tier for me. But I was lucky enough to have a friend when I went to high school named Jason Cessna, who's actually the drummer of a melodeath band called Astroborn, who we reviewed. And Jason was always really good at showing me stuff that I had absolutely no idea existed because it was from a side of metal that, once again, I didn't even know was there. So he showed me them probably when I was like a freshman in high school. I did like the songs that I was shown. However, it probably wasn't until my early 20s when I started really deciding to branch out into more versions and variations of metal that I really started to get into them, and they easily became a heavy rotation in my CD player. I love melodeath, and Slaughter of the Soul is like, one of the top tier.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah. That's a good point. You brought up Jason Cessna. I guess I inadvertently got into melodic death metal through Jason Cessna. So going over this band, first I want to preface by saying I combed the internet. I scoured looking for the early days of this band, and I found a few things that I'll get into. But I really did my research to try and give a full spectrum of this band, and there's not a whole lot out there, at least in the early days. It gets a little bit more intensive as we go on, but early on there wasn't a whole lot, so I'm just gonna go with what I know. Formed in late 1990 in Gothenburg, Sweden. For those of you that don't know, these guys are considered to be melodic death metal, some of the possibly pioneers of melodeath. They started out in a blackened death metal project called Grotesque, which I actually didn't listen to and probably need to listen to. That's because I'm betting it's real good, and I'm going to get into why here in a minute. Now, Grotesque consisted of members Tomas Lindberg and Alf Svensson, and after Grotesque folded, they recruited Jonas and Anders Bueller and Adrian Erlandson, and that formed At the Gates. Sometime then in 1991, they released an EP called Gardens of Grief. And now, to be fully honest with you, I hadn't heard this album until we did the ranking. And I gotta say, it's pretty goddamn good. Gardens of Grief, for me, I have at number 3. This is considered more death metal, I would say. Super dark, a bunch of cool harmonies, and of course, the harmonies, as you know, will be throughout from now on, as far as guitar harmonies are concerned. The songs flow really well, they're kind of catchy, the drum work is fucking full of blasties and harmonies, and just, it's a beautiful record. And I tell you what, I wish that more bands started this good this early on. Straight out of the gate, these guys were ripping. Tomas Lindberg growls a lot more blackened death, I would say, than melodic death. I think this EP whoops ass.
It's definitely not melodeath. I would say this is just flat out death metal. This is my number 5. I love this EP or demo. It's, been called both. It's their most raw sound. The guitars have this just sublimely gross sizzle on it. Great drum work. It is dark. It is heavy. Thomas's vocals, again, much lower. They sound sinister as hell.
Yeah.
The dissonant, savage riffs that are on the song At the Gates absolutely disgusting. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff on this demo that sounds like a lot of like just flat out old school death metal bands that I listen to, and like a lot of bands that come out now. Like, I feel like this just kind of had its roots firmly planted in, I still wouldn't call it like US death metal, but it has US death metal tropes to it. And I think they were probably influenced by, you know, like Morbid Angel, but also maybe even like Sentenced. You know, Sentenced was a Finnish death metal band that had like a lot of this grit too. But yeah, this demo absolutely rips. All Life Ends, absolute banger of a track. City of Screaming Statues, crazy riff changes in that. It's almost kind of technical in a way, and that kind of carries on to the next one. And Souls of the Evil Departed, this whole thing is just an absolute ripper. There's just four more that I like more than this.
Yeah, City of Screaming Statues actually reminded me a lot of early Death.
Yeah.
So I'll be the guy who goes out on a limb and be the variant in this equation. I have this at number 8. I tend to do this naturally with EPs and shorter. It's nothing personal. It's just a shorter body of work, although I do contradict myself a little bit later on, but for good reason. There's nothing bad with this EP. The fact that it is just kind of more death metal or even blackened death metal, I can tell that while it's a solid debut, it's still very basic and very raw as far as the songwriting and as far as creativity goes. And I just know that in this discography, there is so much more that they have to give as far as like even establishing their identity, which they have not done yet, in my opinion. So while it remains a solid EP and a good way to start the career, it's still at number 8 to me because it just feels like they were entering the death metal pool with their best version of death metal, not necessarily trying to be a unique band yet.
Shortly after Gardens of Grief, the band caught the attention of Peaceville Records, which we all know what Peaceville Records is capable of and what they have on their roster, so I think that was a pretty good move for them. And after the band had been together for only a year, they recorded their debut LP, The Red in the Sky Is Ours. And even though Anders calls this record more structured, yet at the same time felt it to be a little bit over the top and extremely challenging, I really, really like this record. This is my number 2. More death metal and really aggressive. Now, I'll be honest, when I first sat down and listened to this record, I didn't like the mix of it. I thought it was a little thin at first, but it was one of those albums for me where as time went on in the record, I got used to it, and I was like, no, this is pretty kick-ass. Still very melodic, although there are times in this record, like the title track I could compare to Cannibal Corpse. Yeah, the drums are pretty intense, all the riffs are fucking wild, and they tend to lean on things like sinister tremolos and harmonies. I got autopsy comparisons on Kingdom Gone. Just a super aggressive record, like more like Morbid Angel moments and death. Through Gardens of Grief, wild harmonies, super speedy, catchy riffs. Makes me want to learn guitar. And I don't know guitar, but there are portions of this record where I'm like, man, I wish I knew how to do more than drum on a table. Within, doomy, mean as hell, packed full of riffs, Claws of Laughter Dead, crazy vocal dynamics. There's a good like start-stop syncopation with the bass going on. Again, another banger, but yeah, I really like this record. Again, maybe because it's more death metal, I don't know, but I mean, I still like Melodeath, but like, this record is badass, and I, again, didn't know that until I got into this ranking.
I got into this album after, well, another album that we're going to get into, the most popular one, whatever. And initially, I didn't like it because it didn't sound like that album.
Yeah.
But years later, I have found a lot more appreciation for this. This is also my number 2. I think this is their most technical album overall. The songwriting on here is wild. Like, they're kind of all over the place. There's, like, stuff in here that I would even compare to, like, Atheist, like Neverwhere. Crazy descending melodies, lots of just really wild riff changes, and I think this is one of Adrian Erlandson's best drum performances.
Yep.
He is all over the place. The turnovers are nuts in here, and like comparing this drum performance to like a lot of the later work where he kind of just dials it in and stays in a little bit more of like a solid pocket. It was cool to hear him like really kind of be like expressive in terms of like, you know, his performance in here, but riff work in here is awesome. And this is where I think the band is kind of finding their own sound. This doesn't sound like they're paying homage to like a lot of US bands or Finnish bands. This doesn't sound like the Stockholm scene at all either. Like this doesn't go like full bore HM2. But it's also not quite melodic death metal, though this does have more melody on it. It's a little bit catchier. I like the turn in vocals from Tomas. He gets a little bit more ghastly and raw. Like, this album retains like a good sinister, evil vibe overall, but it's just way more lavish with like song structure. Night Comes, Blood Black, Kingdom Gone Again, Within, doomy, dark, bleak. Love this album. I think this is honestly kind of underrated because, again, these earlier albums don't necessarily sound a lot like the later ones that we really got to know. But, you know, this stuff I think is just like pure fucking gold.
I'm going to put The Red in the Sky at number 7. Not a bad album. Still very heavily rooted in straight death metal. We do add a little bit of instrumentation with some violins here. We do get a little bit more creative as far as the songwriting goes. But this album, along with the next one, once again, is still very heavily rooted in straight death metal and very overly reliant on tremolo riffs. Like, I think it's overdone. And there's way more styles of riffs that you can include, and not that it's bad, whatever. You know, I get it. They want to be fast and aggressive. That's a great play to use those tremolo riffs to do that. However, I just felt it was too rooted in that. But I did appreciate the fact that they really pushed themselves, and you can tell, like, there's a definite difference between Gardens of Grief and The Red in the Sky Is Ours.
Yeah.
You could tell there was an evolution of musicianship and songwriting, but it just, once again, it's not going to be something that is going to be high on my list when I listen to this band for mellow death.
All right, less than a year goes by, so like this band's on it as far as releasing material and wanting to get themselves out there. Less than a year goes by, so on May 7th, 1993, the band releases With Fear, I Kiss the Burning Darkness. This is Alf Svensson's last hurrah with the band. Alf, it's been real. And while Anders touts this to be their darkest album yet, there were certainly mixed reviews on that. I won't go fully into that, but I combed through quite a bit of reviews to once again do this and found that some people were okay with it and some people didn't like it. The mix, I think, of this record is fairly awful.
Yes.
The guitar tone itself is solid, but the overall mix of this record is not the greatest.
It's drier than fucking Sahara.
Yeah, so this is my number 6. As far as things I liked, Raped by the Light of Christ, The Break of Autumn, the harmony sounded a little bit out of tune, really odd transitions. It did have some sinister riffs. Non-Divine, the groove in the verse, and the overall complexity of things is fairly killer. The vocals are wild. The production, though, pretty much just, like, killed it for me. Primal Breath was cool. It had some good riffs, but a couple of the transitions I thought were fairly jagged. The Architect is a good song. And Blood of Sunsets, again, pretty badass riff and pretty much darker sounding. But, like, the mix was really bad in this record, so it's number 6 for me.
I had this at number 8, dead last. I've always struggled with this album. Like, for me, I feel like it's a bit of a transitional album. Like, it's definitely not quite what they were doing on The Red the Sky Is Ours, but it still doesn't quite have like the At the Gate sound that we all know and love.
Yeah.
It feels like the band was experimenting. Yeah, the production's not good. The vocals on here, like, these are some of the most larynx shredding vocals Tomas has ever done. Like, they sound painful and dry. Like, riff-wise and like song structure-wise, this album can feel a bit aimless. Like, there's a lot of songs with really just kind of jagged transition. Lots of killer riffs in here, though. That opening on Star Drown, the relentless chug-a-thon that is.
Yeah.
Fucking killer. Ever Opening Flower, that features Maddie from Dismember on it, adding some killer fucking vocals. The Break of Autumn, The Architects, that's an absolute banger too. But I don't know, like, a lot of this, it just feels maybe rushed. Like, you know, again, they were only a year removed from the last album.
Yeah.
They were trying to broaden their sound a little bit. Like, there's definitely tropes on here that would show up later. And I mean, going back over this one, I know, you know, Black Dahlia Murder gets a lot of, like, you know, credit for saying, oh yeah, like, we're big on At the Gates, and the At the Gates forum is a huge part of our sound. This is the album where I probably hear it the most. Like, not so much Slaughter of the Soul, but this one in particular has a darker, more sinister tone to it. But overall, it just doesn't gel for me. Like, you know, this is one that I kind of just skip over. Like, I kind of go right over to the next one in line. Again, it has its moments, but I kind of see this as the weakest link in the discography.
Yeah, I mean, props to the band for the tenacity to release back-to-back albums with no break in between, but, like, I just thought like this wasn't as cohesive as I think they might have wanted it to be or could have been. So.
It's a divisive album. Like if you talk to a lot of At the Gates fans, this one's, sometimes it's a favorite. Sometimes it's like, no, I kind of skipped that one.
Yep.
I have this one at number 6. To be honest, this one can be changed with The Red in the Sky Is Ours for me. Once again, it kind of sticks with that death metal formula, but they open it up a little bit more. They lose some of the intensity, though, I think, and some of the rawness, but things like The Burning Darkness itself and Raped by the Light of Christ kind of show the more melodic things that were to come in this band. But yeah, the songs just kind of, there's nothing that really sticks out too much for me, and it just kind of sticks to this heavy death metal formula with just a little bit of melody sprinkled in, but with that death metal, you lost some of the intensity of the previous album, so it's kind of like a trade-off, and both of those albums are just kind of right in that area for me.
Yeah, even when I was taking notes for this album, like I found myself doing other things while listening to this album. I just kept zoning out and being like, oh, that was a cool part, let me go back.
Yeah, I hadn't listened to this one in years, honestly. Like, and I come back to The Red in the Sky Is Ours, like, quite often, because, again, I think it's a standout in the discography for, like, completely different reasons.
Right.
This is just, again, like, it's kind of like an awkward transitional point. Like, they hadn't made the leap to commit to this new sound, and they were still trying to appease what fans they won with the last one. So I don't know. It's just it's a little clunky. I mean, it's still dark and evil.
Primus said it best. They can't all be zingers, right? So a little over a year later, like at this point in the game, these guys just love cranking out albums, and they wanted to record an EP, so they did. Now the label, of course, wanted them to record a full length, but they said, "Fuck you, we're gonna record an EP, but we'll throw on some live tracks." I like how, when you're contractually obligated to do things. Right. Like, here you go, you're going to get this. So, yeah. Goodbye, Alf. Hello, Martin Larson. Welcome to the band. You brought some good flavor. While I miss some of the more death metal elements, this record is a super banger. We are talking about Terminal Spirit Disease, released on the 18th of July in 1994 on Peaceville Records. This is my number 4 overall. While I miss some of the more death metal elements, this is a super riffy banger. It's more straightforward. The mix greatly improves. I came to actually really like this record. Once again, listening to this discography, this was the first time I'd ever heard this album, and this stuck with me. It stuck with me through the next couple weeks as I went through and took notes, and I just remembered this album to be really good. The title track on here is a fucking beast. The Fevered Circle, I thought had some more like Carcass vibes to it. And there's one riff in there, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember what it sounded like, and then I remembered COC. I don't know why, but there's a riff in The Fevered Circle that stands out to be COC era, like Deliverance or Wise Blood. It's somewhere in there. I haven't quite figured it out, but that's what it sounds like to me. The Beautiful Wound, aggressive and super catchy riffs. The vocals on here are absolutely crucifying. I dig the fuck out of this record. As short as it may be for actual, material, as it is another EP, like, I really like this. The live tracks were solid. The band sounded tight, so that's what I can say.
That's a good way to actually kind of fill out an EP. I've always struggled calling this like a full length because you have 6 studio tracks on here, and then the live tracks are they're tacked on there. But
how many tracks are on Gardens of Grief?
4. That's a demo of an EP. But no, I still like it.
So it has double, 50% more.
Yes.
But this is my number 3. In terms of At the Gates finding that new sound that was kind of lurking in the darkness that they were kissing, they found it. The riffs on here, Catcher in Hell, the title track is like a top 5 At the Gates song for me.
Yep, for sure.
Dude, it's fucking brilliant. They found that perfect balance of finding like good bludgeoning riffs that are also a little bit more melodically tinged. They stick with you. The drumming, a little bit more simplified, but still excellent.
Solid.
Adrian's a beast of a drummer. Vocally, this is where Thomas found kind of the voice for this. I think, or at least I heard like some rumors that Thomas kind of blew out his vocals doing With Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness, and that kind of contributed to his delivery on the other albums. He's like fucking giving it his all on like some like pretty damaged vocal cords, but overall it gives it this like more harrowing scream.
Yeah.
And I think it's like kind of like the one of those like missing pieces in terms of their sound. I feel like Martin's addition in here too, like he rounds out the lineup. I think, again, the songs are just like more straightforward, more about the hooks. They're less technical. I kind of miss that aspect, but at the same time, like, these songs are, like, instantly memorable. And yeah, like, you know, this was definitely an interesting turn. Like, this band had been kind of like slowly changing over this period. Like, we've had 2 different logos show up now in this period from the original one. But I think this is where, like, again, it was just really starting to gel. And yeah, this is just a fantastic fucking listen.
I couldn't agree more. This is my number 2. This is the album where At the Gates became At the Gates. The riffs have evolved. There's much more variety. And you combine that with the deeper, more melodic elements that are on here. And it really creates a power in the songs that I don't think I experienced until Terminal Spirit Disease. This combination, this blend, so to speak, really gave this album so much power and their sound. And to me, this is the blueprint that they take into the future. And this is what made them stand out as individuals.
I also think because they were working on less songs here, like this was only 6 studio tracks, you know, I think that was a good idea because they had time to fine tune these 6 tracks rather than put out an entire full length like the label wanted. Like, no, take your fucking live tracks and fucking enjoy them. But yeah, I think that kind of like showed a little bit more dedication. Like, let's make sure these songs are just fucking powerful.
Well, yeah, you can tell that they were a lot tighter, and like you could tell that like they finally kind of found their groove and what they were looking for as they evolved. Like, because this is such a good precursor to what comes next. So the next record, I'm pretty sure everybody at this point in the game knows what's coming, and I don't have to really give this record a gigantic introduction because I don't have to.
Should we just say go?
Yeah.
Next up is Slaughter the Soul. Released on the 14th of November in 1995 on Earache Records. This record is pretty much the creme de la creme of records, period. I love this record. I've loved this record since I bought this record. There's not a song on here that I would skip. The mix of this album is damn near perfect. The album flows incredibly well. Riffy as shit, dude. Blinded by Fear, solid fucking opener. The title track is a banger. Under a Serpent's Sun, dude. Awesome grooves from the rip. Dude, Suicide Nation, I mean, what do you want? What do you want, dude? This record rules. First At the Gates album I'd ever heard. I think that's true for most of us here. Yeah, if not all of us. I've jammed this record, I don't even know how many times. To be honest with you, I'm pretty sure I've burned through at least one album and rebought it again. Album ranked number 300 in Hard Rock Magazine, 500 greatest metal albums of all time. Metal Injection had this album ranked at number 8 in the top 10 influential metal albums of all time. Rolling Stone had it ranked at number 79 on the 100 greatest metal albums of all time. I mean, what do you want? This record fucking rules. The sound that they were looking for, what they evolved into, what this band became ultimately is right here in this record. It's number 1 for me.
It's number 1 for all of us.
Yeah. It's number 1 for me as well.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I mean, in the most predictable fucking ranking ever.
Yeah.
This is the fucking goat of like melodeath albums, like right up there with like Heartwork for me.
Yeah.
I don't really need to say much else here. This is the album that launched 1,000 melodeath bands and probably 1,000 metalcore bands.
Yep.
And all right, going over this one. You know, all right, I can go over all the tracks I love in here. Suicide Nation, World of
We would
Lies.
end up just repeating the same thing.
Just read all the tracks. Huh?
All the tracks. Even the bonus tracks are fucking amazing, too, depending on what version you have. Actually, fuck that. Not depending on what version you have. They're all good. Trust me. But going over this, I decided to actually kind of, like, dive into Metal Archive reviews. And that's always a weird
dangerous
journey.
game to play.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Believe it or not, there's a 0% rating for Master of Puppets on there that is a really interesting read. It's all entirely bullshit and stupid, but it's a good read. I decided to check out the reviews for this one just because, you know, because this band influenced a lot of metalcore bands, and the archives say it's metalcore, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Some people have some spicy takes, and there were some. One in particular, though, and I don't really call it like a spicy
I'm about to
take.
get pissed.
All right.
What you're saying.
He had an interesting argument. He said that this was the best sellout album.
Oh, what a fucking
ever.
douchebag.
And, all right, I don't agree with it being a sellout album, but in terms of a band streamlining their sound, making it more accessible, but not losing the core of their sound, they nailed it. They made a streamlined, you know, kind of accessible extreme metal album. every riff on this album is a banger. You get a badass Andy LaRocque solo on Cold, which is like my favorite lead on the entire album. I love that little twangy thing he does. Yeah. It's just fucking amazing. Beautiful instrumentals like Into the Dead Sky. This is like such a well-balanced, well-paced album. Like this is exactly what I would kind of want from like any album. Like give me like everything you got riff-wise, hook-wise, but keep it nice and intense. And it's a fucking god tier album. That's pretty much it there.
Right, that's right.
All right, I've been waiting patiently. So that's horseshit, number one. I would say I don't believe their intent was to, be on the pop charts. I just think that they had other influences that they were able to inject into this album that gave them a unique voice. And just because it spread like wildfire does not mean they sold out. So whoever wrote that can kiss my fat Italian ass.
I mean, I wouldn't say like they were like, trying to like make the Black Album or anything like that. But
still, the word sellout's a strong word.
Dude.
I think it was in quotes. But
yeah.
I mean, again, in terms of bands streamlining their sound without fucking selling out like, Metallica didn't, they did a great job.
Yeah.
This is a fucking amazing album.
And not a sellout album.
So, naturally, after your release, one of the greatest Melodeath albums of all time, possibly one of the greatest albums of all time, depending on whom you ask, what are you supposed to do, right? You supposed to go out and celebrate, go to Disney World? No, you break the fuck up for a long period of time. In fact, from 1996 until 2007, you didn't hear much about this band whatsoever. So that's what, 11 years of nothing?
Oh man, a lot of people talking about how awesome, Slaughter of the Soul is, but that's about it.
Tomas Lindberg, of course, went on to do some things, even when bands break up, most musicians will tell you at this point in the game that they're still going to play music and still going to at least try to do something. And, I mean, look at metal nowadays, dude. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's jammed with everybody. Like, it's hard to nail down some musicians as far as what they're doing. Tomas Lindberg, of course, went on to do Dysphere, Night Rage. He was a guest vocalist in about 30 other projects.
Yeah, he did The Crown.
The Crown.
The Great Deceiver. He just showed up everywhere. Lockup.
Yeah, Lockup.
Killer fucking death grind project.
Yep. The Buellers and Adrian Aronson, of course, went on to do The Haunted. I fucking love The Haunted.
I love The Haunted.
I love The Haunted. We're going to get to that eventually, for sure, but yeah.
They kept the At the Gates sound a little bit alive. Like, it was a little bit thrashier and meaner, but you could still hear it there.
And of course, while everybody was out doing other stuff, right, the Bueller brothers decided to finally make it official that they left the band, so, like...
We knew.
Right, like, I mean, I get it. I mean, of course, 11 years of inactivity, you want to not be in the band, you want to go do something different. Well, and they had The Haunted, so, I mean, it's not like they were completely sacrificing their talents. In 2007, right, At the Gates starts chit-chatting with each other, at least the remaining members, and they announced a series of shows, including Wacken, Grasspop, Hellfest, etc. And the idea, at least, to reform At the Gates was born. Now, in July of 2008, the Off Yourself tour was dubbed the final tour for At the Gates, and the final show on that tour was actually with The Ocean in Athens, Greece. Despite some success for these live shows, the band slates it's pointless to do another record after Slaughter of the Soul. We released the best thing humanly fucking possible. Why continue on?
They weren't wrong about the Slaughter of the Soul thing, but continue on.
So in 2008, yet again, At the Gates takes a hiatus all the way until 2014. Now, there was a redeeming factor somewhere in there. 2 more years pass. They do a limited number of shows, festivals, and such, but they stick to the promise of no new music. Until October of 2012, Tomas Lindberg resurfaces and states, "I've learned to never say never." And so, on January 21st of 2014, the band releases a distorted video on YouTube, about 30 seconds long, showing lyrics alluding to the possibility of new music.
I remember that video.
And then on the 27th of January of 2014, the band updates Facebook with photos stating that they signed to Century Media Records and would begin recording At War with Reality. This is my number 6 overall. Shorter songs, but seemingly a solid follow-up. I mean, it's really tough to follow up Slaughter of the Soul. It does sound a lot more like metalcore that was prevalent during this time period.
Maybe.
Like, and even so, you know, my music taste had changed, obviously, from metalcore into death metal. This released at number 3 on the Swedish charts, number 53 on the Billboard. I mean, pretty solid mix, crunchy guitars. Sounded remarkably, though, at least to me, like Unearthed, Darkest Hour, The Haunted. I mean, which, why wouldn't it at that point? I mean,
You've influenced all those bands.
Right, exactly. It definitely influenced all those bands. Had a lot more thrashy elements in it. Death in the Labyrinth had great grooves, very catchy. You know, still maintaining the melodeath sound. The title track is solid. The Circular Ruins, good solid riffs, a bit chunky. Heroes and Tombs is super groovy. Like, again, I mean, it was a solid try, but it's hard to follow up such a banger.
I put this at number 4. I didn't think it was bad at all. I think it started off with some very safe and standard kind of songs for taking so long. You know, they kind of played it safe at the beginning. But as we start getting midway through the album, things like Book of Sand, Eater of Gods, City of Mirrors, and Night Eternal are kind of more standout tracks that really propelled this album for me up into that 4 spot. Once again, the album kind of starts safe and kind of what you would expect, I think. But as it goes on, we start getting a little bit more creative and a little more new juices flowing. And I thought the back half of this album was really good.
I also had it at number 4. I mean, it picks up right where they left off sonically. The only real difference, you know, that I detected is, you know, this is a Jens Bogren production. It's bigger, it's fuller. Musically, you could just call this Slaughter of the Soul 2 Electric Boogaloo, and it would have been a funny reference, but, you know, it would have been accurate. You know, in terms of like comebacks, again, you know, brought up like a couple of schools of thought there. This is the one where they played it safe. They gave the fans exactly what they wanted. They wanted a follow-up to Slaughter of the Soul, and they got one. I think the songs are strong, if, you know, a little safe. Like, this has little to no surprises on it. Mm-hmm. You pretty much know exactly what you're going to get here, but what you're going to get is still killer. Title track absolutely rules. It's one of my favorite songs on here. Conspiracy of the Blind, Eater of Gods, good fucking pull, dude. That opening riff is just fucking mean as shit. Heroes and Tombs, the songs are solid. But yeah, this is, again, like kind of a safe return, but I mean, the riffs are there, the hooks are there. This is what At the Gates fans wanted. I mean, this was actually kind of what I wanted too. So I can't really complain that much.
So then in 2017, Anders Bueller finally leaves At the Gates. It's been well, sir. And Jonas Stahlhammer joins the band. And on May 18th of 2018 on Century Media Records, the band releases To Drink from the Night Itself. Russ Russell takes over on the producing helm. I had this record at number 5 overall. Personally, I think this record brings back more of a melodeath sound and tones down some of the blatant metalcore tropes that were found in the previous record.
You found them.
It's also a bit darker. Once again, we get some mean tremolo riffs that come back. The Colors of the Beast, slower, darker, more sinister riffs. The Chasm is absolutely catchy. A Labyrinth of Tombs, also slower and darker. In Death They Shall Burn, that sinister chorus is pretty rad. But I mean, like, overall, I think they're bringing back some not only darker elements to their music, but some more melodeath elements and kind of leaving the polished sound of the metalcore behind. So overall, this is number 5 for me.
I put this at number 5. To me, this doesn't go back to the melodeath. This goes back to the more death metal vibe of the pre-SOS. I think we have a little bit more aggressiveness. Some of the melody is taken out, but it's some of the fastest and most aggressive shit that they've done probably since With Fear I Kiss My
The Burning
Mother
Seal.
on the Mouth. Yeah.
That's maybe the title?
Yeah. I just felt like this kind of went back to the more pre-SOS Terminal Spirit Disease kind of sound and went for the more aggressive death metal stuff from their first couple albums. It's definitely not bad, but it just kind of fell mid-range to me because there's not a lot of tracks that just kind of stand out on their own to me.
I have this at number 6, and honestly, I have kind of a slightly different take than both of you, which we kind of have different takes on this one. I thought this was, you know, again, very much centered on their current sound, except they added more atmosphere. It was a little bit darker. The only thing I think they kind of took from like the earlier years was the tone, the vibe. Mm-hmm. It sounds a little bit more sinister, like, you know, the Chasm, and Death They Shall Burn, like you listed off like every single track that I had listed off.
That's
too.
why I stopped doing that. I don't even like to list tracks anymore because by the time it gets to somebody else, they've, it's been said 4 times.
Right.
But it still has like a lot of the familiarity. Like, the title track is like something that could have been on Slaughter of the Soul, like 100%. I like the turn in production on here. Russ Russell, he's noted for his work with Napalm Death, and he's really good about adding a lot of that distant, kind of like eerie atmosphere. It kind of gave this, like, I don't know, like a different vibe. Like, this didn't feel like Retread, where you could definitely make that argument with At War with Reality. Like, that was the fan pleaser. This was them actually trying to take that core sound and expand on it a little bit. And while I have this lower than At War with Reality, I found a lot of like new appreciation for this album. Like initially, I didn't like it as much, and then coming back to it, I was like, dude, this one's actually fucking really good. But again, I'm a sucker for those classic hooks. So yeah, number 6 overall. This is actually like kind of a low-key banger here.
And then on the 2nd of July in 2021 on Century Media Records, the band releases The Nightmare of Being. A ton of mixed reviews on this record. Again, I tried to find as much as I could as far as like history was concerned, and once again, there's not a whole lot of it. This album enters into kind of a more like, I don't know, proggy territory. There's definitely some progressive elements going on, which makes some moments in this record to me a little bit lackluster. I had this at number 7. It's got some Enslaved vibes at times, but it seems like this record is a little bit more all over the map. Like, they wanted to experiment a little bit more, but they weren't 100% on what direction to take. Eternal Winter of Reason, I mean, it just sounds kind of dark. Spectre of Extinction was cool. Like the beginning of this record is pretty okay, and then it kind of skews into this weird territory. I don't know. This wasn't really my favorite. I understand, time goes on, you want to progress a little bit, you want to play with the sound, but I mean, like, to me, this just wasn't it for the band.
I also had this at number 7. I don't dislike this album. We actually reviewed this one when it dropped, and it has, again, all the hallmarks of like At the Gates that I look for. I mean, you have like some very Slaughter of the Soul-esque songs on there, but you also have some experimentation, which I think, experimentation was like a little bit needed. Again, you can only retread that masterwork so many damn times. And I like that they kind of went with like a bigger sound on here. Like this one went back to Jens Bogren on the production, which dude's just fantastic. Yeah. But it didn't sound like At War with Reality. At War with Reality sounded really like stripped down compared to this one. This one included like a ton of additional instruments. You had sax, you had bass tuba, you had strings. There's a fucking bassoon on there. Why the fuck not? Clarinet, choirs. They wanted a big, lavish album with huge metal hooks, and I think they did a really good job for the most part. I will say that Thomas's vocals did sound really weathered at this point. Like, there just wasn't as much, like, bite to them. But there's some really epic arrangements on here. The Fall into Time, I think, is a big standout. Probably the most progressive song this band has ever written. Very ambitious. And kind of a lone standout for me is Cosmic Pessimism. That one has a lot of the core themes of this album kind of locked in, which this whole album is about pessimism as the last refuge of hope. Kind of the Murphy's Law thing. Anticipate that shit will fall apart, but, be pleasantly surprised when it doesn't. And it kind of keeps you from, like, putting a lot of false hope in things. And I kind of latched onto that theme in this album. But musically, I thought this was good. Maybe a little, too bold at times where it kind of overreached, but still a solid album.
I'm going to disagree with these gentlemen, and I put this at number 3. I really enjoyed this album when it came out. I think I gave it a 4.5. I don't think I gave it a 5. I gave it a 4 or 4.5. It doesn't matter, but I remember really liking this album and ranking it kind of high. To me, this was a great blend of everything they've ever done. I don't look at it as not knowing what direction they were going in. I look at it as more of trying to incorporate everything that they've ever done, plus throwing in a couple new tricks with some of the orchestration and some of the different instrumentations, or, challenging themselves to write a little bit more proggier of a song here and there. And I really enjoyed it. You can kind of see, obviously, now with my rankings that I prefer my At the Gates to have that strong melodic hook, because in my eyes, for my ears, when a band can mix heavy with good melody, and I don't mean like corny, cheesy, happy, upbeat, hold hands. When you're able to create melody and not have it sound poppy or too majory and happy, you're able to create that beautiful kind of somber type melodies. To me, those are my favorites, and some of the best that you're going to hear as far as that blend goes is going to be stuff like Slaughter of the Soul. And so in this discography, I absolutely felt more drawn to the more melodic stuff, hence why something like The Nightmare of Being is going to be my number 3, because I really, really dig that. My ears really vibe with that kind of shit. So that's how I look at it.
I mean, that's fair.
Honestly, there really wasn't an album on here that I just flat out disliked.
Right. There was nothing in this discography that I hated, that I was like, you know what, I'm never going to ever listen to this again.
It's not the Napalm Death discography, which self-admittedly not a fan, nothing personal, but if I wanted to hear a bunch of albums of noise, I could just run into shit in my apartment and clang my silverware drawer.
I mean, that's fair.
It's not fair.
I mean, that's fair in terms of what he could do. I disagree about I disagree about his hatred for Napalm.
Well, he could be wrong on that side of the fucking table.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sit over there. Some more.
I am.
All right, great. And so, in July of 2022, At the Gates announces the departure of Jonas Stahlhammer and the return of Anders Bueller, which I think is a great idea. At the time, it said they were working on their 8th studio album. Now, I've read that actually that they're pretty much through it, and that Tomas Lindberg's vocals are on everything, which is great. A couple months ago, of course, it was released that Tomas Lindberg has mouth cancer, and they are removing actually a fairly sizable portion of the upper palate of his mouth. So, I mean, the vocals are there and are recorded. Thomas, we wish you well, man.
Absolutely.
We are 100% behind you. I'm sure a lot of fans are at this point in the game, but like, as a bummer as that is, you know, we definitely wish you well.
I've always been just a fan of him in general. Like, he's also a social studies teacher, which I think is really cool. But he's got a long road too. Like, I believe they've already removed like the section of his mouth, but they've removed as much as they can. There's still cancer, and I believe he has to go through radiation chemotherapy to really battle it. We're fucking pulling for you.
Yeah, man. We're
100%. And again, apparently we're gonna get another At the Gates album that's already done. I mean, that was why they kind of canceled everything.
Yeah.
And I guess they just kind of got to work. Thomas got to work on, what he needed to do, and still managed to do vocals. That's metal shit right there. But yeah, I guess we're just kind of left waiting to see what the future holds for At the Gates.
So that brings us to the end of this discography ranking. As always, we are very curious to know what your thoughts are. Please feel free to leave comments in the video letting us know what your personal rankings would be. If we said something that you agree with, great. I'm kind of interested to know how many people kind of feel the same as me as far as like which parts of this discography they like. Maybe they tell me to fuck off and you guys are right on, spot on, but it's all opinion based anyway, so it's just nothing but a good conversation piece.
I've been told to fuck off so many times by now. I'm okay with it.
There's videos of me all over the internet where I've been told to fuck off. And there's compilations, and there's memes, and there's all sorts of things. So it's nothing that I'm a stranger to. You can tell me to fuck off. You can tell me right on. You can,
They placed you right on that altar, didn't they?
Yeah, right on that altar.
It was madness.
Maddening.
Pure madness.
Yep, just madness.
Right on that altar.
Yep, right there.
So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and Lone Perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we're gonna doing more regularly now that we are on more of a solid schedule now.
Yeah.
But memberships are the main way to support the channel, and there's a join button down there if you'd like to hit it. That'd be fucking awesome of you.
And if you don't want to hit it, that's cool too. Tons of metal content coming your way. Album reviews, discography rankings, the Thralls of Metal greatest hits, Nick's never-ending collection updates, non-members only live streams, which are equally as stupid as the members only live streams. You get the idea. We do it all for you guys. Tons of stuff coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this channel. Thank you to everybody that has liked and subscribed and commented and has befriended us, I guess, which is cool. We don't understand why you guys love us so much, but we're thankful that you do. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule. Tons of content coming. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.